Hello, my name is Omar Cruz. I'm Director of Education and Clinical Herbalist for Himalaya Drug Company out of Bangalore, India and Houston, Texas. I'm an author of several textbooks on botanical medicine and the soon upcoming book on Ayurvedic medicine, the medicine out of India. Today we're going to talk about a very important product, and certainly one that I think we all need to spend more time thinking about, which is a product called Stresscare. So to give you kind of a general overview, the human body was set up to deal with three stressors, three types of stressors. And when you think about it in terms of history, what were the three most common types of stressors, right? Physical attack, starvation, and infection. By understanding the reach of each of those considerations, you can truly write up an entire book on the stress response. You see, the most common stressors were not mortgage prices. They weren't the Canadian-American dollar exchange. They weren't any of the stressors that we face today. They were most likely, why is that tiger looking at me? What's for dinner? And why is my throat scratchy? When you think about how stress impacts the body, think about it in terms of those three specific dynamics. And what they all have in common is the word inflammation. You see, if a tiger were to scratch you, right? Inflammation is what's going to guard the tissues from being expressed to the open environment where there's obviously a tremendous number of bacteria, not counting the bacteria that's probably on the nails of that tiger that scratched you. When you think about starvation, cortisol, which is one of the biggest hormones in the blood to measure in terms of the stress response, one of its other duties is to make you hungry. As you can see, throughout history, since starvation was one of the most common stressors throughout our past, cortisol helps us to create appetite so that we can offset any potential starvation that's coming forward. And lastly, infection. The hallmark of infection is inflammation. Think about the word itis, obviously, which means inflammation. Think of all the conditions that end with the word itis, and you can get an idea of how popular inflammation is as a response to the immune system. Now, fast forward and go to today. Think about all the stressors that are emotional in origin, or think about all the stressors that are financial, or even think of just the stressors that are traffic related. In Toronto, I can tell you, just from being here for a short amount of time, it seems like everyone in Canada lives in Toronto. But all this to say is that inflammation, when it regards to an emotional response, can create havoc in the human system. So whenever you think about the word itis, I want you to think about the mind. This is exactly why Ayurveda said that all disease begins in the mind, in one of the three poisons of the mind, which is anger, fear, or desire. They were able to map all of the 800 conditions they described by simply following where the emotions went. And that's why Stresscare is one of our most popular sellers, because stress is something that we should all be addressing, and none of us are really good about talking about it. The Stresscare formula has been around since the mid to late 1970s. So we've had this product in availability for greater than 40 years. And it's also been subject to over 100 human clinical trials. And we've studied it for a tremendous number of emotional complaints, as well as hormonal blood work. We've actually studied, in fact, to support normal levels of cortisol levels. In fact, we recently just finished and completed a human clinical trial among 50 patients, all of which were studying for reported problems with insomnia, middle of the day energy levels. They were studying for hypersomnia, which means the inability to wake up in the morning. This is usually indicative of a kind of a burned out situation where the adrenal glands aren't waking up, as well as feelings of worthlessness. It's a study design that's called the Hamilton Rating Scale for depression. It's oftentimes used in clinical investigation. We actually saw greater than 60% improvement in each of those categories simply by taking 2 capsules twice a day of the Stresscare formulation. Now, when you turn around the bottle, you're gonna be a little bit surprised because there's over 70 ingredients within this one formula alone. I want you to think about Stresscare as a multivitamin. When you shop for a multivitamin, do you look for the one with the least amount of ingredients or the most amount of ingredients? Well, hopefully your answer is holistic, and hopefully you're looking for the more complex multivitamin. You see, Stresscare is the multivitamin for the emotional world, and it's going to provide all of the types of plants that have been thought upon and regarded upon and really debated upon for thousands of years in the system of Ayurveda. And again, this is a formula that has no contraindications or interactions with any drugs known today, and it can be safely taken in the absence of a meal without any upset to the stomach and without any worry about its combination with other over-the-counter or even prescription medications. Give it a try, because what I've found that it does the best with people is this. It doesn't remove stress, but it takes you out of the middle of stress so that you can truly observe it from an objective point of view and react to it with a very rational perspective.